Welcome to InfoStream, your daily current. Unsure what to listen to? Turn to us for today's headlines. Stay informed. White House Ballroom Project faces controversy. GO pressures Democrats over government shutdown. US increases Pacific boat strikes, causing casualties. Sanctions target Russian oil giants amid peace stalemate. NBA gambling scandal reveals arrests and Mafia links. Israel maintains control in Gaza, ICJ rules on aid. Trump seeks $230 million from Justice Department. NYC mayoral debate showcases contestant strategies. Myanmar's battlefield shifts with Junta gains and Chinese support. Maine candidate faces controversy over tattoo and statements. France reduces support for Channel migrant intervention. Blast at Russian factory kills at least 12. Khartoum flights resume. Trump cancels Putin meeting citing interference concerns. US-Colombia alliance strained by Trump-Petro feud. South Korea seeks US alliance amid tensions. White House Ballroom Project, a controversial renovation. The White House is undergoing a significant and controversial renovation involving the construction of a 90,000 square foot ballroom, sparking criticism and raising concerns about the process and its impact on the historic building. The project, privately funded to the tune of $200 million, is being spearheaded by President Donald Trump, who has emphasized its rapid execution, citing his experience in real estate development. Despite initial assurances of minimal disruption, the demolition of the existing East Wing, which houses offices for the First Lady, has proceeded aggressively, prompting outrage from architectural and preservation groups. The scale of the undertaking, the largest structural change to the White House's exterior since 1942, is particularly concerning. Key entities involved include the White House, the National Capital Planning Commission, led by Will Scharf, preservation organizations like the National Trust for Historic Preservation and the Society of Architectural Historians, and the American Institute of Architects. These groups have voiced strong objections, demanding a more transparent and public review process, emphasizing a preservation-first approach, and advocating for rigorous design and architectural oversight. The project's rapid pace, fueled by Trump's assertion of zero zoning conditions, contrasts sharply with the calls for a deliberate and considered approach. Critics argue that the lack of consultation and the scale of the ballroom, potentially accommodating up to 1,000 guests, will overwhelm the White House itself, which measures 55,000 square feet. Furthermore, the project's funding, derived from private donations, remains largely undisclosed, adding to the controversy. Previous presidents have overseen smaller renovations, including landscaping, internal refurbishments, and minor structural additions, but this undertaking represents a fundamentally different level of scope and potential impact. The National Capital Planning Commission has acknowledged a limited role in the demolition phase, while Scharf has stated that Trump holds a high regard for the commission's work. The project's timeline and the lack of adherence to established preservation protocols are central to the criticism, raising questions about accountability and the long-term preservation of this iconic landmark. GOP attempts to pressure Democrats amid government shutdown. A central point of contention within the ongoing government shutdown revolves around a Republican proposal to pay essential workers, including military personnel, TSA agents, and Border Patrol officers, directly from the Treasury Department. Democrats oppose this measure, arguing for universal payment of all federal workers, and are preparing a counter-proposal. The vote on the GOP bill is scheduled for Thursday, but its prospects are slim due to the 60-vote threshold required for advancement in the Senate. Senator Tim Kaine expressed concern over the bill's potential for political manipulation, highlighting the possibility of using the power to designate essential workers to exert punitive pressure. Simultaneously, the administration's decision to selectively pay criminal investigative agents within the Justice Department and the FBI, categorized as 1811 employees, has created division and negatively impacted morale. This selective payment is hindering investigations, limiting spending on activities like informant payments and drug buys, and delaying ongoing cases. The FBI is actively seeking options to ensure full employee compensation. Meanwhile, damage occurred at Gettysburg National Military Park, specifically a stone wall in Devil's Den, a site of intense Civil War fighting. The damage, potentially caused by a vehicle, is under investigation by the National Park Service's law enforcement arm. Park advocates are urging the public to be vigilant and report any suspicious activity, emphasizing the importance of protecting these historic sites. Concerns are also rising about increased instances of vandalism, trash buildup, and unsafe behaviors, such as drone use, at various national parks, including Yosemite, during the shutdown. The National Park Service maintains that its law enforcement rangers are operating at full capacity, prioritizing life, property, and public health, while acknowledging the challenges posed by the shutdown. The situation underscores the broader political stalemate and its impact on federal agencies and national parks. U.S. escalates Pacific boat strikes, killing dozens in expanded anti-drug campaign. The United States has significantly escalated its counter-narcotics operations, conducting lethal strikes against multiple vessels in both the Caribbean and the Pacific Oceans, resulting in the deaths of at least 37 individuals. These strikes, initiated in mid-September, represent a dramatic expansion of the U.S. military's approach to combating drug trafficking. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth confirmed that 9 strikes have occurred, with the vast majority targeting boats in the Caribbean, but recent operations have shifted to the Pacific Ocean. The strikes involve vessels suspected of transporting illicit narcotics, with Hegseth characterizing the perpetrators as narco-terrorists and designated terrorist organizations. The U.S. military is employing a legal justification based on a classified opinion, treating drug traffickers as enemy combatants, allowing for immediate lethal action without judicial review. The operations have prompted international concern, with Colombian authorities denouncing the strikes as like applying the death penalty in a territory that is not yours. The U.S. has responded by asserting its right to take decisive action, comparing the traffickers to al-Qaeda. Following the initial strikes in the Caribbean, the U.S. has now targeted vessels in the Pacific, resulting in the deaths of 3 individuals in a recent strike. The U.S. military has repatriated 2 survivors from a previous Caribbean strike back to their home countries, Ecuador and Colombia, after initially detaining them. President Donald Trump has authorized these expanded operations, signaling a willingness to utilize military force against drug trafficking organizations. He has stated his belief in having the legal authority to continue bombing boats in international waters. The ongoing operations are marked by heightened tensions between the U.S. and Colombia, particularly due to Trump's strong criticism of Colombian President Gustavo Petro. The U.S. is deploying approximately 10,000 troops, numerous aircraft, and ships to the Caribbean and Pacific regions to bolster its counter-narcotics efforts. These strikes are part of a broader strategy to disrupt drug trafficking routes and combat the flow of narcotics into the United States. The legal implications of these actions are significant, raising questions about the use of lethal force against non-state actors in international waters. The conflict has led to a growing debate about the appropriate response to drug trafficking, with the U.S. prioritizing a forceful approach while acknowledging the concerns of its international partners. U.S. imposes sanctions on Russian oil giants amidst stalled peace efforts. The United States has announced sanctions targeting Russia's 2 largest oil companies, Rosneft and Lukoil, following a stalled effort to secure an immediate ceasefire in the ongoing war in Ukraine. President Donald Trump initiated the sanctions, citing disappointment with Russian President Vladimir Putin's lack of progress toward negotiations. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent stated the sanctions are a necessary response to Putin's refusal to engage in honest negotiations. The sanctions represent a significant escalation in U.S. pressure against Russia, building upon previous measures. The European Union has also implemented sanctions, including a ban on Russian liquefied natural gas imports. Diplomatic efforts are underway, with the EU's sanctions envoy scheduled to meet with Treasury Department officials to coordinate strategies. Ukrainian ambassador to the U.S. Olga Stefanishina welcomed the sanctions, emphasizing their alignment with Ukraine's stance that a ceasefire requires pressure on Russia. She anticipates further coordinated actions from European partners. Trump's decision to impose the sanctions followed a failed summit in Alaska, where he expressed frustration with the lack of tangible progress. The U.S. has previously hesitated to implement more stringent sanctions, citing potential economic repercussions. The sanctions are intended to exert maximum pressure on Russia, but their ultimate impact remains uncertain. The U.S. is considering secondary sanctions targeting banks and traders involved in transactions with Rosneft and Lukoil, a move that could further isolate Russia's energy sector. The sanctions coincide with a large-scale Russian air attack on Ukraine, including the capital city of Kiev. This attack underscores the continued conflict and reinforces the urgency of finding a resolution. The U.S. administration has previously expressed concerns about the potential economic consequences of sanctions, but this time, the administration appears determined to maintain pressure on Russia. The sanctions are a key component of the U.S. strategy to support Ukraine and promote a peaceful resolution to the conflict. The EU's actions further demonstrate international unity in condemning Russia's aggression and seeking a diplomatic solution. NBA gambling scandal arrests and Mafia connections uncovered a major investigation involving illegal sports gambling and connections to organized crime has led to the arrest of NBA figures, including Portland Trail Blazers coach Chauncey Billups and Miami Heat player Terry Rozier. The FBI is leading a probe involving a nationwide scheme encompassing rigged poker games and the use of insider information for placing bets on NBA games. 31 individuals have been charged in connection with rigging illegal poker games, utilizing sophisticated technology such as custom shuffling machines, barcoded decks, and hidden cameras to steal millions from victims. These games were allegedly backed by the Bonanno, Gambino, and Genovese crime families, with NBA figures like Billups participating to lend legitimacy to the operations. The investigation reveals a complex network involving manipulation of NBA player injuries. Individuals falsely reported injuries, like sitting out games or pulling out early, to influence betting outcomes. Terry Rozier's involvement highlights the use of this tactic. Furthermore, the defendants exploited long-standing friendships with NBA players and coaches to obtain confidential information about player status and potential absences. This information was then used to place substantial bets, primarily on prop bets, focused on individual player performance, at online sportsbook casinos. Alongside the poker game scheme, the investigation uncovered a separate operation utilizing insider information to place bets on NBA games. This involved exploiting non-public details about players and teams to profit from gambling. The Bonanno family, historically linked to loan sharking, narcotics, and prostitution, had a seat on the Five Families Commission for over 30 years, until Joseph Pistone's infiltration in the 1970s, which ultimately led to the family's downfall. Later, Joseph Massino reclaimed the family's seat, subsequently working as an informant for the government. The ongoing investigation continues to expose a network of corruption and illicit activity within the NBA and its connections to organized crime. Israel maintaining control in Gaza, an ICJ ruling on humanitarian aid. Recent reports indicate that the Israeli military is exerting control over a larger area within Gaza than initially stipulated in the ceasefire agreement with Hamas. Images and satellite data reveal that Israeli troops have placed yellow markers, known as the Yellow Line, hundreds of meters deeper into the strip than anticipated by the original maps. These markers, instructed by Defense Minister Israel Katz, are intended to create a buffer zone and kill zone for tactical advantage. The IDF has not addressed these findings, stating the markers were intended to establish clarity. Confusion persists regarding the precise boundaries, with multiple maps issued by various entities prior to the ceasefire. The ICJ has issued a non-binding advisory opinion, asserting Israel's obligation to facilitate the delivery of humanitarian aid to Gaza by the United Nations and its agencies, ensuring the basic needs of Palestinian civilians are met. This follows Israel's passage of laws restricting UNRWA's activities and contact with Israeli officials. The ICJ's ruling highlights Israel's duty to allow unimpeded access to essential supplies for Gaza's 2.1 million population, a region facing severe food insecurity, with UN experts estimating over 40,000 people experiencing catastrophic levels of hunger before the ceasefire. Israel has previously rejected these famine declarations, maintaining it allows sufficient food entry. Following the ceasefire, incidents involving individuals crossing the Yellow Line have occurred, with the IDF responding by firing warning shots, as documented in BBC Verify footage. These actions have resulted in casualties, including civilians. The ICJ's opinion directly challenges Israel's restrictions on UNRWA, asserting that these actions violate international law. Israel has dismissed the ICJ's opinion as political and has continued to deny UNRWA's neutrality. UNRWA's acting Gaza director welcomed the ruling, stating it underscores Israel's legal obligations. The situation remains complex, with ongoing disputes over boundaries, aid access, and the role of international organizations in Gaza. The ICJ's ruling represents a significant legal challenge to Israel's actions and adds further pressure for improved humanitarian access to the besieged territory. Trump's bid for $230 million from Justice Department, a complex and potentially unprecedented scenario. Donald Trump's attempt to secure $230 million from his own Justice Department represents a significant and controversial development, fueled by long-standing grievances regarding past investigations and prosecutions. The core of the issue lies in Trump's assertion that he was unfairly targeted and damaged by federal agencies, primarily stemming from the Russia investigation and the classified documents case. He has filed 2 administrative claims under the Federal Tort Claims Act, seeking compensation for legal costs and punitive damages, totaling a staggering sum. The legal claims center on the perceived violations of his rights and the alleged misuse of governmental power. Trump argues that standard protocols for former presidents were disregarded and that the FBI and Justice Department acted unlawfully in conducting searches and indictments. He specifically requests a $15 million in legal expenses and $100 million in punitive damages related to the Mar-a-Lago classified documents case. Despite the unprecedented nature of the request, Trump's position is complicated by legal and ethical considerations. Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, Trump's former personal lawyer, holds a key role in the potential settlement. The Justice Department's standard practice is to pause civil litigation, including administrative claims, while criminal investigations are ongoing. The potential payout would dwarf previous settlements in similar cases, exceeding amounts paid to victims of sexual abuse, Nassart, and mass shootings, Sutherland Springs, and Mother Emanuel. The Justice Department's internal ethics oversight has been significantly reduced, raising concerns about a lack of checks and balances. Negotiations are reportedly underway, though details remain scarce. Trump has expressed a desire to donate any settlement to charity, yet acknowledges a lack of specific knowledge regarding the financial details. The process is further complicated by the potential for legal challenges and the inherent conflict of interest in a former president seeking compensation from his own department. The case highlights a broader tension between executive power and the rule of law, and the potential consequences of a president seeking to influence the judicial process. The situation underscores the ongoing legal and political ramifications of Trump's presidency and his persistent efforts to challenge his legal setbacks. NYC mayoral debate highlights key contestant strategies. The second NYC mayoral debate showcased intensifying strategies from the three leading candidates Zoran Mamdani, Andrew Cuomo, and Curtis Sliwa. The central theme revolved around contrasting approaches to key policy issues, particularly regarding Israel, crime, and ballot measures, alongside attacks on each candidate's past actions and credibility. Mamdani consistently emphasized inclusivity and sought to address concerns regarding his stances on Israel, repeatedly asserting his commitment to representing all 8.5 million New Yorkers, including Jewish residents. He faced persistent scrutiny regarding his past statements and attempts to mitigate perceived anti-Semitic rhetoric. Cuomo, leveraging his established political network, aggressively targeted Mamdani, frequently highlighting the candidate's past criticisms of Israel and attempting to paint him as lacking experience and a clear vision. He also relentlessly questioned Mamdani's credibility, referencing the sexual misconduct allegations that led to his resignation as governor, and accused him of attempting to exploit the concerns of Jewish voters. Sliwa, employing a more populist and confrontational style, directly challenged Cuomo's authority, frequently referencing historical figures and employing emotionally charged rhetoric. He criticized Cuomo's handling of hospital funding and accused him of attempting to manipulate public opinion. Sliwa also attacked Mamdani's credibility, specifically referencing allegations of tax fraud related to his crime prevention organization, the Guardian Angels. Throughout the debate, the candidates engaged in heated exchanges over controversial ballot measures, with Cuomo and Sliwa repeatedly pressuring Mamdani to articulate his positions. The debate also featured a significant focus on the potential impact of a Cuomo mayoral administration, with Sliwa arguing that Cuomo's policies would be detrimental to the city. The debate underscored the increasingly competitive nature of the race, with each candidate attempting to define themselves against their opponents and solidify support among key voter demographics. The intense exchanges and pointed accusations highlighted the critical importance of the final weeks of the campaign. Myanmar's shifting battlefield, Junta recovers territory amidst Chinese support, and Scramble centers. The conflict in Myanmar continues to shift dramatically, with the military junta regaining lost territory through relentless airstrikes, and bolstered by Chinese support, while simultaneously grappling with the proliferation of scam centers along the border. Recent weeks have seen the recapture of key towns like Kyokhami and Esapa, strategically important for controlling trade routes to China. The military's success is attributed to a combination of factors including increased troop numbers, new technology, and a shift in tactics, particularly the deployment of drones and motorized paragliders. China's influence is central to the junta's resurgence. Beijing has provided significant backing, including technical and financial aid for the upcoming election and diplomatic support, further solidifying the junta's position. The conflict is driven by the junta's desire to secure its control over territory and facilitate the election, despite international condemnation. However, the junta is also contending with a complex and destabilizing issue, the widespread operation of scam centers along the Myanmar-Thailand border. These illicit hubs, facilitating fraudulent schemes targeting individuals globally, have become a significant source of revenue for allied militias and a point of contention between Myanmar and China. Despite crackdowns and pressure from Beijing, the scam centers continue to thrive, fueled by the flow of trafficked workers and the potential for high earnings. Recent operations have led to the repatriation of thousands of individuals, including South Koreans and Indonesians, and prompted investigations involving Thai officials. The conflict is further complicated by the involvement of various ethnic insurgent groups, such as the Ta'ang National Liberation Army, the Myanmar National Democratic Alliance Army, and the Arakan Army, who are leveraging the instability to advance their own agendas. The situation is characterized by a fragmented opposition movement, comprised of numerous People's Defense Forces and ethnic insurgent groups, hampered by internal divisions and a lack of centralized leadership. Despite these challenges, the resistance continues to operate, particularly in Rakhine and Chin states. The ongoing conflict has resulted in significant casualties and displacement, with estimates suggesting over 1,000 civilian deaths this year. The strategic importance of border areas, coupled with the economic implications of the scam industry, underscores the complexity and far-reaching consequences of the civil war. The interplay between military maneuvers, Chinese influence, and illicit economic activities continues to shape the volatile landscape of Myanmar. Maine Senate candidate Graham Platner faces controversy over tattoo and past statements. The campaign of Maine Senate candidate Graham Platner has been significantly impacted by revelations surrounding a tattoo resembling a Nazi symbol and a series of controversial statements made during his time in the Marine Corps and on social media. The initial controversy erupted when a video surfaced showing a tattoo on his chest resembling the Totenkopf, the German symbol for death's head, which has been associated with Nazi imagery. Platner initially apologized, stating he did not realize the tattoo's implications and that it was acquired during his service in Croatia in 2007. He subsequently covered the tattoo with a Celtic knot design. Beyond the tattoo, Platner's past social media posts have drawn criticism. He previously made remarks referencing communism, dismissing police as bastards, and questioning whether black people tip. He also expressed views on sexual assault and culpability in instances of rape. These statements, coupled with the tattoo, have fueled scrutiny of his candidacy. Senator Bernie Sanders has staunchly defended Platner, characterizing the situation as a campaign of character assassination by the Democratic establishment. Sanders highlighted Platner's service in Afghanistan and Iraq and his commitment to fighting for working-class Americans. The controversy has extended to other Democratic figures. Virginia Attorney General nominee Jay Jones faced similar criticism after the release of violent text messages he sent in 2022, including references to assassinating Republican figures. Despite the fallout, Jones has received support from his family and colleagues, who argue voters should have the opportunity to decide his fate. Platner's campaign has focused on broadening the Democratic coalition, emphasizing the perceived shortcomings of the current economic and political system. He is running on a platform of Medicare for all and raising the federal minimum wage, attracting support from those disillusioned with the status quo. The situation underscores a broader trend in American politics: the examination of candidates' past statements and actions. The response to Platner's situation mirrors similar controversies surrounding other Democratic figures, highlighting the heightened scrutiny and potential pitfalls of running for office in the current political climate. The race in Maine is now seen as a critical litmus test for the Democratic Party, as it navigates its identity and approach to engaging with diverse voter segments. France backing away from Channel migrant intervention. Recent reports indicate a significant shift in France's approach to intercepting migrant boats crossing the English Channel, despite previous commitments to a more aggressive strategy. Multiple sources within France reveal that political turmoil is contributing to a diminished operational capacity. The maritime doctrine, initially intended to involve patrol boats in actively intercepting and returning inflatable boats, is now considered still being studied and faces uncertain implementation. Former Interior Minister Bruno Retailleau played a key role in driving a more assertive stance, culminating in a summit with Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer. However, Retailleau's subsequent removal from government has disrupted this momentum. While French police did take action, such as slashing sides of boats, the overall commitment appears to have wavered. The situation is complicated by logistical and legal concerns. French naval authorities, wary of potential legal repercussions and risks to personnel, have resisted deploying in the unstable, overcrowded boats. Existing rules limit intervention to rescue attempts in imminent danger. The lack of specialized equipment, training, and personnel further hinders effective action. Despite these challenges, France continues to patrol its coastline, stretching over 150 kilometers, and collaborates with the UK under the Sanders Treaty. Volunteer rescue crews, though frequently asked for assistance, face unique difficulties, including threats from smugglers. The on-in, one-out scheme, where the UK accepts asylum seekers in exchange for returning those who have had their claims rejected, has seen 42 individuals removed to France, with 23 returning to France. A recent surge in crossings 36, 734 arrivals in 2023, 530 more than the same point in 2024 highlights the ongoing challenge. The Home Office continues to work with France, and further removals are planned. The issue remains a complex interplay of political factors, operational constraints, and legal considerations. Blast at Russian munitions factory kills at least 12. Flights resume in Khartoum. A significant explosion at a Russian munitions factory in the Urals region has resulted in at least 12 fatalities and 19 injuries. The incident occurred in Kopaysk, a district within the Chelyabinsk region, which shares a border with Kazakhstan. CCTV footage captured the immediate aftermath of the blast, showing a large fireball originating from the plasmas plant. This factory specializes in the production and recycling of explosives for the Russian military. Authorities have ruled out a drone attack as the cause of the explosion, though the precise reason remains under investigation. The blast occurred near the plasmas plant, a key supplier of explosives to the Russian military. Meanwhile, satellite imagery indicates the resumption of commercial flights at Khartoum Airport, marking the first time since the outbreak of Sudan's civil war in 2023 that the airport has reopened for commercial traffic. This development signifies a potential step towards restoring normalcy in Sudan, although the ongoing conflict continues to pose significant challenges. Additionally, the BBC Verify team is actively analyzing claims made by former President Donald Trump regarding drug boat interdiction efforts. Specifically, Trump asserted that each destroyed boat saves 25,000 American lives, prompting a thorough fact-checking process by the BBC's Washington-based team. The Verify team is committed to providing accurate and verified information on this and other critical stories. The BBC Verify Live team will continue to deliver updates and analysis on these and other developing stories. Trump cancels planned Putin meeting, setting concerns over Russia's interference. Former U.S. President Donald Trump announced on Tuesday that he had canceled a previously anticipated meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin, citing ongoing concerns regarding Russia's continued interference in U.S. elections and broader geopolitical issues. The announcement, made via his social media platform, Truth Social, followed weeks of speculation and uncertainty surrounding the potential summit, which had been brokered by Saudi Arabian Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. Trump stated that he had received many credible reports indicating that Russia was actively attempting to influence the upcoming 2024 U.S. presidential election, a claim that has been echoed by intelligence officials. He asserted that he could not proceed with the meeting while these concerns remained unresolved, framing the decision as a necessary step to protect American interests and democratic processes. The planned meeting, intended to be held in Saudi Arabia, was intended to serve as a platform for discussing a range of issues, including Ukraine, Syria, and Iran. However, it faced significant obstacles due to disagreements over the timing and agenda. U.S. officials had expressed reservations about the potential for Russia to use the meeting as a pretext for further aggression. The cancellation underscores the persistent challenges in U.S.-Russia relations, which have deteriorated sharply since the 2016 election. Despite efforts to engage with Russia, deep-seated mistrust and competing geopolitical interests continue to impede progress. The decision highlights the ongoing tension between Trump's desire to foster dialogue and the persistent security concerns surrounding Russia's activities. The future of U.S.-Russia relations remains uncertain, and the potential for future engagement hinges on addressing these fundamental disagreements. US-Colombia alliance strained by Trump-Petro feud. The United States-Colombia alliance, once a cornerstone of counter-narcotics efforts, is rapidly unraveling due to a growing rift between President Donald Trump and Colombian President Gustavo Petro. The alliance's origins lie in the early 2000s with the Plan Colombia, a U.S.-funded initiative aimed at combating drug trafficking, but recent tensions have escalated significantly. Trump's suspension of aid payments and accusations of Colombia's failure to control drug production following U.S. military strikes against suspected drug vessels in the Caribbean and Pacific have severely damaged the relationship. The core of the conflict stems from differing political ideologies and approaches to tackling drug trafficking. Trump's aggressive tactics, including the targeted attacks and accusations against Maduro, have been met with condemnation from Petro, who has labeled them an act of tyranny and called for legal prosecution. These actions have triggered concerns about potential illegal intervention in Colombian territory. Historically, the U.S. has provided substantial aid to Colombia, including military assistance and development funding through USAID. However, the recent cuts, coupled with the shifting U.S. strategy, are creating instability. The U.S. military's increased presence in the Caribbean, aimed at disrupting drug trafficking routes, has exacerbated tensions. Despite the deterioration, both nations remain interdependent. Colombia relies on U.S. military bases and intelligence, while the U.S. utilizes Colombia's strategic location for counter-narcotics operations. However, the current situation poses significant risks. The cuts in aid weaken Colombia's security forces, and the shift in trafficking routes, particularly through the Pacific, threatens to undermine U.S. efforts. Experts warn that this fractured alliance ultimately benefits criminal organizations. The situation is particularly concerning given the ongoing violence in regions like Catatumbo, Cauca, and Val del Cauca, where armed groups are intensifying their attacks, further destabilizing the country. The future of the US-Colombia partnership is uncertain, with both sides seemingly moving towards disengagement amidst escalating tensions and a shared struggle to maintain control over a vital, yet increasingly volatile, region. South Korea's President Lee Jae-myung seeks U.S. alliance amidst tensions. South Korean President Lee Jae-myung has expressed a desire to strengthen the alliance with the United States, despite recent tensions and ongoing trade disputes. Speaking in a CNN interview, Lee welcomed U.S. President Donald Trump's upcoming Asia visit, viewing him as a potential peacemaker within the Korean peninsula. He acknowledged heightened security concerns stemming from North Korea's recent ballistic missile tests, emphasizing the need for continued dialogue and peace efforts. Despite these challenges, Lee actively sought to foster a collaborative relationship with the U.S., particularly regarding North Korea. He expressed hope that Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un could engage in direct talks, mirroring Trump's previous attempts at summitry. While acknowledging the low probability of a meeting during Trump's visit, Lee reiterated the importance of both leaders working towards global peace. The interview highlighted the complex and multifaceted nature of the U.S.-South Korea relationship. Lee recognized the strategic value of the alliance, particularly in countering China's growing influence in the Asia-Pacific region and the presence of the U.S. military's largest overseas base. However, he also acknowledged the need to navigate the economic realities of a strong trading relationship with China, recognizing ideological and systemic differences. Recent trade disputes, including Trump's tariff demands and the fallout from a previous interim leadership period in South Korea, had created strain. Lee secured a trade deal in late July to avert tariffs on Korean exports, securing a $350 billion investment flow. Nevertheless, detailed negotiations continue to be challenging, particularly regarding auto tariffs and the U.S. immigration crackdown on Hyundai plants. Lee expressed confidence that a rational result could be achieved, emphasizing the U.S.'s commitment to democratic values and the free market system. He also signaled a willingness to assist the U.S. in revitalizing its manufacturing industry. Despite criticism of Trump's trade policies, Lee maintained a hopeful outlook, aiming to solidify a strategic partnership between the two nations. The situation remains delicate, requiring careful diplomacy and a willingness to address competing interests.